In this video, let us explore the builder design pattern. According to the gang of 4, builder design pattern means separate the construction of a complex object from its representation so that the same construction process can create different representation. If you have understood, it's well and good. If you have not understood, it's fine, because by the end of this video you would have understood what this exactly meant. So what are we waiting for? Let's dive in and check out what is this builder design pattern. Well, I would like to explain it using a simple program. However, first I would like to create a complex object. Complex object means an object that has multiple fields or multiple variables. If you now want to create an object, class is important. So first let me create a simple class. Name of the class, I will give it as student. Here a simple class is ready. Any class, whether you tell or you don't tell, a default constructor will be there. I would like to represent that constructor. Here we have the constructor. For my student, I would like to store different values like the first name, last name, the age and the gender. For me it's sufficient. These many things I would like to store. So if I now have to store variables is required, quickly I will create the variables. There you go, the 4 variables are ready. According to the laws of object orientation, I had to enforce encapsulation. That's the reason I now made all the variables as private. But if I make it private, at any given point in the future, I may have to set any values to this. So what to do? For that reason, I will now be giving getters and setters for all the 4 variables. There it is, the getters and setters are ready for all the variables. Do we require anything else in our class? Maybe we require. Whenever we require, as and then we'll come back and change our class. So maybe now I would like to create the objects of this class. I would like to create it inside the main method present in some other class. So this is how I would like to do it. There you go, we have the main method inside a different class, by the name itself is main. I would like to create an object of student. If I have to create an object of student, I will now have to tell new student. To this, one reference I would like to give, and I will tell it as S1. I would like to print the contents of this object student S1, so I will tell system.out.println S1. Let me execute this and see the output. When I now run, notice the output. You can see that it is not printing the contents of the object, rather it is printing the address or the reference of that object. I don't want the reference of the object, rather the contents of the object has to be printed. So what should I be doing? Yes, a little modification to my student class will do the job. So I will get back to my student class. Notice the small change. What I would do is, there is a method called as toString method. That is what you have to change, and that will do the job. Wherein I would like to print all the details of present inside the variables. So hence I will select everything, and auto-generated string will be given to me. If you want, you can modify this. I don't want to modify, I will keep the defaults as it is. Now I'll go back to the output here. I'll clear the output. When I now rerun the program, notice the output. This time I did not get any references of my object, rather what I now got is the contents of the object. What is the contents? Of course, nothing is there. Where have I now given the values to it? Let me now give the values to it. So if I now have to give the values to it, I will have to come back and I will now have to set it manually. So I will now tell to this student whose reference is S1, please set the first name as Barry. I would also like to set the last name as Alan. Not only that much, I would like to set the age and gender as well, but unfortunately let me assume that I don't know the age of this student. I will just leave it as it is. So I will set the next variable, that is S1 dot set gender, and the gender I will tell it as M. M stands for male. I will clear the console and let me check the output by executing it once again. This time if you see, I have now got the contents of the object as first name is Barry, last name is Alan, age is 0 and gender is M. Why the age is 0? Because I don't know the age, so hence I did not set it. Since I did not set it, the default value has been set. So fine, but however this approach has a small problem. What is the problem if you ask me? Just to build one student object, how many statements did you use? If you look closely, you have now used 4 statements. Which are those if you ask me? First statement is that you have created the empty object using the new keyword. After which you created you set the first name, you set the last name, you set the gender. If at all age you knew, you had to set it using one more statement. So basically you are now using multiple statements to build only one single object, which may not be acceptable in every case. Then what's the solution? Some of you may now be thinking a best solution for this is create using a constructor. Build the object using the constructor. Yes, that is a very good approach. Let us quickly change our class and give a constructor that will accept all the parameters and set it in a single shot. So I will jump back into my student class here. I will now tell I don't want a simple constructor, rather I would like to set it using the constructor, parameterized constructor. So I will generate the constructor and I would like to set all the variables, and there you go, a constructor is ready for me. Let me use this constructor now. Well, I'll jump back into my main method here. I will now create a new student. So I will tell new student. But this time I don't want to set after I create the object, while creation itself I would like to set. So in the same order you now have to give. So the first name, let me tell the name of the second student is Iris. And the last name of this student is West. Once again, I don't know the age of this student. When I now don't know, I just cannot leave it empty. This is one disadvantage of using constructor, that is, even if you don't know a value of a particular field, it will be asking you, it will be enforcing you to give a value. You cannot just skip it like before. So since I don't know, I will just give the default value as 0. Then I would now like to give the gender of the student. So I will tell it as F, which stands for female. To this I will now be giving a reference, maybe I will tell it as S2. I would like to print the contents once again, so I will tell S2 system.out.println S2. I will clear the console and execute my program. If you now watch closely, yes, second object is created, but this time I did not use multiple statements. However, only in a single statement I now created an object. This is also fine, but however there is a disadvantage here. I told you the disadvantage. The disadvantage here is the order in which you now giving the value is preserved. You cannot just give the last name first and then the first name, nothing as such. You cannot do it. You cannot give the gender at the beginning and the first name at the last. No, you cannot give it. So what is the solution for this? Some of you there are now thinking that maybe I will now override the constructor to give that will accept a different order of parameters. Yes, you can do that. But again, how many constructors like that will you write? Here you now have only 4 variables. In real time, you will be now having like hundreds of variables. What will you do at that time? How many constructors will you write? So hence, overriding the constructors again and again and again is not the feasible solution. But what is the feasible solution? Yes, the builder pattern is the solution for this. What is builder pattern? That is what I have to discuss next. To implement the builder design pattern, first thing is you now have to restrict the usage of the new keyword on the student class. In other words, the constructor should not be executed directly. To impose this, you now have to make these constructors as private. So I will now jump back into my student class and will now make the constructors as private. Do I have any constructors inside my student class? Yes, you have 2 constructors. One is the default constructor and one is the parameterized constructor. 2 constructors are there. I will now make both of them as private. The moment you do like this, wherever you have now created the object using the new keyword will now flash an error. So I will now jump back into my main class and you can now see the wherever you have now told new student is now flashing an error. Why? Because private means if you now want to access that you have to be in the same class, but unfortunately you are inside the main class and from the main you are trying to call the constructor, which is not possible because it is private. So you cannot create it using the constructor now. Then who can create it? Yes, of course, you now have to give a logic inside the student class itself that will actually build an object for you. Notice it how to do that. How to do this? The first step now here is you now have to write an inner class inside the student class. I will jump back inside the student class. I'll just scroll down. Just before I close the student class, I will now create a class inside this class, which is only called as inner classes. I will tell public static class. You can give any class name of your choice, but however, according to the standard, you now have to give the name of this class that will be building the object for you as the builder. Yes, you have a class inside a class. This is possible. What to do next? The next step is that you have to declare the variable that is present inside the student class. The same variables have to be rewritten once again here. So I'll just scroll to the top, copy the same variables present inside the student class, jump back inside the builder class and paste it here. Next what? Next what? For these variables, you only have to generate the setters. Setters is sufficient because getters you will never be using it for this. Setters is sufficient and I will be generating the setters. Only setters I will be generating, and for all the variables I will be generating. I'll just minimize this to create some space. Yes, we now have the 4 setters for all the 4 variables. Now you have to modify the setters a bit. What is that if you ask me? For all the setters, you now have to tell return this. What does this means? This means this represents the current object or the current class. In other words, you are actually returning an object of the current class, that is the builder. So for all the setters, you have to write this. Since you are returning the object of the same type, of course, the method signature also has to be changed. It is void. You now have to change it to builder. Like this. Is that all if you ask me? No, last one step is remaining. What is that? The actual building of the class. So you now have to write a method here that will actually build the object of the class. You can give any name of your choice, but according to the standards, you now have to give the name of the method as build. So I will tell public. With this build method will actually give the main object, that is the student object. I will tell student. and then I will tell build. Inside this, the actual creation of object takes place. I will tell new and student, not student builder, it's only student. And herein you now have to pass in all the values for the, as parameters, that is first name, last name, integer, the age and the gender. So you have to tell this dot first name, this dot last name, this dot age, and this dot gender. And whatever object you create, you have to return it back. So I'll just append a return keyword at the beginning of the statement like this. Well, if you do this much, you have successfully implemented the builder design pattern. Well, we have done the implementation, but how to use this is the question. That is what I have to demonstrate to you. I will jump back to the main class. Inside my main method, I simply cannot tell new student like this because that constructor is private now. Rather, you now have to use the inner class present inside the student class. What is the name of the inner class there? It is builder. So you have to tell new. Builder directly you cannot tell. It is present inside a class. The class name and the other class name is what you have to tell. So you have to tell new student dot builder like this. This is possible. Why? Because the inner class is made static. If you don't make it as static, you can never call it using the class name. You have to first create the object of student class and then you can call it. That is not possible as of now. So hence I made it static so that I can now call it using the student class name itself. Next what? To this I would now like to set the values. First I would like to set the first name. So I will tell set first name. Remember, you had created only setters inside the builder class. Those setters you are now calling. So the first name is Barry. I don't want to set the last name now itself. Rather, I would now like to set the gender. So I will now tell set gender. And I will tell this as M. I don't know the age, so I won't bother to even type it. Rather, now I would like to give the last name. So I will now tell this as set last name. And this is Alan. Is it built? No, still it is not built. Finally, one method you have to call that will actually build the object for you. Which is that method? Correct, it is the build method. So it is dot build like this. The moment you tell like this, automatically the object will be built for you. So in a single shot you have built the object. These statements is not required now, so you can just remove it. What is the advantage here if you ask me? In a single line you have done it, but in this single line the order is not preserved. You can give the order in whichever you want. First you can set the first name, then you can set the gender, then the last name, or else you can also set the last name first, then the age, in whichever order you want, you can now do it. Let me demonstrate to you once again with the second object. So I cannot call the constructor, so I'll just take it out and I will tell student dot builder. Then I will now tell dot, maybe I will set the gender first by telling F here. Then I would like to set the last name as West. Then I would like to set the first name. So I will tell this as. Finally, when you are done, you have to actually build the object. So you will have to tell build like this. Okay, I'm getting an error. Why? Because these should be enclosed within double quotes. Okay. Let us execute and see the output of it. First, I will clear the console. When I now execute it, notice the output. Yes, the output is same. But what is different? What is different is the coding way. How many statements you used to build? In only one. Was the order preserved? Now the order was not preserved. In whichever way you want, you can give the values and finally you can build it. I hope this is completely clear. This is what we call it as the builder pattern. Now let us quickly jump back to the statement that we had seen earlier in the Gang of 4 book, and let us see whether it really matches this approach or not. So according to the Gang of 4, builder design pattern means separate the construction of a complex object from its representation so that the same construction process can create different representation. Yes, if you closely watch, a complex object was there, which is the student class, that is student object. We did not directly create it. Rather, we created one more class inside the student class that took care of the building of the object. So the logic was inside the builder class. So it was completely separated, and that's what it's telling. So same construction process can create different representation. Multiple objects can be built out of it. I hope this is completely clear. If you have any queries, do post it below in the comment section. I will get back to you in 24 hours. If you think that this video has helped you, do subscribe to my channel and turn on the notifications so that you don't miss out any of my future videos. There are still a lot more to come in the future. See you in my future videos. Thank you.